Hi, everybody, and welcome back to our latest episode of Guild Chat. I hope you guys are all enjoying Winter's Day. We're talking about the newest raid wing today, so we're going to jump right in. I'll let our dev guests introduce themselves. Jason?
Hey, I'm Jason Reynolds. I'm a game designer and team lead for raids.
I'm Jessica Croft, formerly a raid designer.
I'm Byron, formerly and currently a raid designer.
You were a raid designer, but you still are.
But I still am.
Those two things are mutually exclusive.
Well, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about what you each worked on for this raid?
So let's see. So team lead, so I kind of like oversaw everything.
Everything.
But what I actually made was the Broken King and the Eater of Souls.
You have made the Broken King.
I have made the Broken King. We should definitely get into that.
I mean, you also steered the whole release.
Yeah.
Like, you're the reason this happened.
I mean,
Just take credit.
All right.
I worked on specifically Tasmina, but also a lot of the earlier parts of the raid. So the ghost fortification that you're in the beginning.
Mm-hmm. You also did the pre-event, the pre-release.
Oh yeah,
events,
I completely forgot about that. Yeah, all the stuff that came out prior to the actual release. So the dead bodies and the spirits and the journals and all that stuff. That was me.
And I was the designer for Doom, and I did most of, if not all of, the rewards work. So the bench of the precursor and all that stuff was me.
you mean Dehume?
Oh, I'm sorry. That's right. Everyone's been pronouncing Dehuem wrong. And this is totally for real and legit, but is
I feel like that's a lie, but go ahead.
I mean, Wooden Potato is going to back me up on this one. It's Dehuem. It's an old pronunciation from some forgotten language.
See, I thought it was Dahum.
Oh, boo.
Are you sure it's not
It's
Dahum?
Dehuem.
Boo.
All right, chat, which one is it? Let us know.
Boo.
Okay, so why you only half made the Broken King? Seems like a good place to start. What, did you just get tired and
Yeah, I fell asleep. So, as with game development, while you're developing things, sometimes you make adjustments, or the story changes, or something doesn't fit, or it's out of scope, or pick a reason.
game development happens?
Game development happens, and so there was a boss, the Duet of Mortality, if we want to call it that, which had a really interesting mechanic that we wanted to keep, but we didn't have room or the ability to do what we wanted to do with it, and so it became the Broken King.
Wouldn't it be amazing if we just had unlimited time and resources to do everything we wanted to?
Yeah.
I'll just give you guys a second to think about that magical world. Byron
Would
looks
we
like he's
ever-
going to cry.
Would we ever ship anything?
We would ship everything we wanted to.
I'm skeptical on
It's
that
an
one.
imaginary world.
That's
Just
fair.
roll with it.
That's fair.
So
I really wish we had kept the name Duet of Mortality, because that's totally like a JRPG end boss name.
It
Yeah, but
really
That boss
is.
is not a JRPG end boss, though.
No, it's so much more fun to do like a throwback to like Guild Wars 1 stuff.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, you're the team lead, so now that's what everybody thinks.
Good.
It's not true. I do what I want.
Byron often goes rogue.
And that's when the really fun stuff happens. But you mentioned Guild Wars 1. The whole thing is like a huge Guild Wars 1 throwback. And how much fun was that to make?
It was really fun. I mean, I played a lot of Guild Wars 1. I don't know that I actually went to Underworld. I definitely didn't fight Doom in Guild Wars 1 when it was, the hot
You
game.
didn't go to
but-
Underworld?
No, I mean,
Oh,
I
that's so
did.
much
Like,
fun.
and I would get run through, like, Fisher of Woe and everything. But yeah, it was really great being able to do the research on it and just learn about all the lore and the little bits and the fun, cool things that have generated over the last, over a decade. And then working with Lindsay, who actually made the original Doom encounter, and getting her input on it and sort of watching her just enjoy seeing her sort of legacy
Yeah.
move on and grow. So it was a really cool experience.
I should have assumed, but I didn't realize that Lindsay had a hand in this. But
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you
Oh,
just
oh,
about
yeah.
can't do it without.
Yeah.
She probably kind of loved that. Okay, Jason, you worked on Statue of Ice and Statue of Death.
Yeah.
Okay, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, so Statue of Ice is the Broken King event that we just talked about. And Broken King is the name of the creature, but the Statue of Ice is where the encounter takes place. And then the Statue of Death is where the Eater of Souls sort of resides. And what we wanted there was, we wanted players to learn a mechanic that happens during the Doom encounter, but we also wanted to make it sort of fun and have its own feel. And I wanted there to be a lot of splitting the players up into teams so that somebody has to do one mechanic while the other players are doing another mechanic, and they just kind of support each other. And I think it turned out pretty well. It wasn't designed to be, a proper boss fight.
Yeah.
So it's not incredibly challenging, but it does require that players work together and communicate and have a strategy going in.
Which turns out, Byron and I talked about this way back when we started doing raids in Guild Wars 2, how important it is to have encounters where the players need to communicate and cooperate and work together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's neat to see that you guys continue with that.
I think that's a pretty core fundamental, like we were talking about a jillion years ago with raiding, is that, and I think that coming from as an active raider in other games, and in our game, I most of my memories are about the times I spent with that group of people. I mean, I know Jessica and Crystal from 10 years ago because we met each other raiding,
It's
and
been
so
like 13, I swear.
I don't know, I don't know, but
yes,
but that
you have told me those stories and I love them.
right, and I think I remember being up for 28 straight hours doing things like raiding, and I remember with rose-colored glasses, of course, how hard that was and how terrible I felt at times. But
those are the rose-colored glasses? Dude.
Wait, no. Right. Yeah, actually probably true because it's probably worse than I remember.
I'm saying, how terrible was the reality?
But I came out of that with really lasting friendships and really lasting relationships with those people. And I think that's one of the things that people tend to overlook with raiding is what that can do for you.
I mean, with any MMO, it's all about community, right? And raiding is kind of like one of the pinnacle events you can do in relation to community, because you are 100% relying on everyone else in your raid performing and knowing what the plan is and communicating
and not being AFK.
I mean, it's all about teamwork, 100%.
What did you do, Jason?
Just always sitting around waiting.
Also, speaking of which, I remember your nickname from when we raided.
There's only going to be a thimbleful of salt when you say this.
Okay,
say
Cuppy.
Yeah, cuppy. We'll get into that in another time.
Like a cupcake.
Yeah, like a cupcake.
Aww, that's adorable.
Great. It's going to be updated on my bio on the wiki, along with that really gross picture of me.
Byron Cupcake Miller.
Okay, did everybody get that?
Do your word to the wiki.
I will change the subject and ask Jessica about Desmina. Because I love how you pulled this out of a single line of lore in Guild Wars 1.
Yeah, Desmina was a blast to work on. So sometimes we have storylines that have carried through from ages ago, from the beginning of Guild Wars 1, and we've had a plan for a character all along. Desmina definitely wasn't one of those. Desmina was an instance we needed a boss, and we needed a powerful figure that you could kind of learn from and work with. And I went back and I looked through Guild Wars 1 lore for the Underworld, and I found this passage about Renth's first follower, who's Desmina. And the passage, which I believe you can find on the wiki, is the only reference to Desmina in all of Guild Wars 1, and I believe there is a point of interest called Desmina's Hollow. So there's not a lot of stuff behind Desmina, and it was a pleasure for me to be able to work with Lindsay and just the whole narrative team to try and flesh out this story for Desmina and make a full-fledged character out of her. And I'm really satisfied with how she came out. Just seeing the voice actors put voice to her was like watching life being breathed into clay, right? Sometimes our emergent characters are our most interesting ones.
Mm-hmm. So did it make it easier? I've been wondering about this. Did it make it easier to have this clean slate to work with, or was it harder not having much to go on?
I mean, it's a different set of challenges. A clean slate, you have more flexibility, sure, but you also have less structure, right? You could potentially do something stupid. On the flip side, working with a character that's been in lore for a long, long time, you really want to honor that character and honor the intent of the people who created the character and take the character's story in a direction that makes sense for them, but also continue to grow the character. So it's a completely different challenge, but they're both tough. And the underworld is full of callbacks, which
It
I'm
really
sure
is.
everybody's noticed. And because of that, it required a lot of research and a lot of talking to people who actually worked on the original content to just make sure we were honoring those memories.
What?
I just I got a lot of PMs about why Doom doesn't yell in all caps. And I just remarking that not all of the callbacks made it, but that one was a sort of a silly,
almost made
silly,
it.
It almost. Well, I
It
thought is
almost
the
made
Chest of Doom still Chest of Doom? Is it still all
No,
caps?
I don't think so.
So. Anyway.
I mean,
You did have that one line that was all caps.
Oh yeah, I think it's towards
and
the
then,
end. Yeah.
and then editing poo-pooed on our party.
Yeah.
No, I don't think they did that.
What was it?
So I think one of them is still in all caps. I think it's the transition line for Phase 3. But like, I think it's like something like you cannot contain the power of death or something like that.
That seems like an all cap statement.
Right? I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
Grammar.
I mean, I was on team all caps. Like, I wanted all caps, but
For that particular statement, I will join team all caps.
I appreciate that Doom in the last 250 plus years has taken some time to chill out and to brood a little
He
bit.
has
Well,
learned
I mean,
some
he's
decorum.
lounging in that
Yeah,
chair.
you see him in that chair, and you're like, that guy knows how to get his chill on.
Yeah, he has turned off
Exact
caps lock.
description.
So let's talk about the Doom fight a little bit. And I'm saying Doom. You guys can
The
pronounce it
human,
however you
please.
want.
The
I
human.
don't care.
The hum?
We're gonna each have our different ones. The hum.
But tell me about the fight. Because you scripted that, right?
Wow, tell me about the fight.
The whole thing. Walk me
the
through
whole
the whole
thing.
thing.
Or for first, you put your left foot in front of your right foot, and then your
Okay,
right
I'm
foot in
bored.
front of your
Just
left
tell me
foot.
about
Yeah.
scripting the fight.
Tell me about scripting the fight. Doom was interesting, and I think we have some like Jason was saying, like you go through a process of what works and what doesn't, and we went through a lot of changes with Doom regarding both the mechanics of what we were trying to convey and whether or not we were doing like the aesthetic and whether or not we were actually accomplishing that. And I think that what we really focused on mostly with this was the sort of ritual aspect of what is happening in the fight. The Reapers, again, as has been happening for thousands of years, have come to reseal Doom. Maybe it goes a little wrong this time. Maybe someone meant for that to happen. Maybe someone didn't. It sort of remains to be seen. But both the narrative aspect of the ritual and the fight mechanics sort of are designed to be one and the same. You have very patterned behaviors that you do expecting the same outcome, and those things are fulfilled. You send a person to take the place of a Reaper so that the Reaper doesn't get killed, and that person then goes up and performs a thing by eating these little energy orbs.
As you do.
As you are wont to do. And that process is repeated and repeated and repeated. One of the big parts of ritual in an anthropological sense, in a cultural sense, is the repetition of behavior towards a sort of agreed upon symbolic or spiritual end game, right? And so a lot of what happens in the Doom fight is based around that concept, the concept of doing the same thing the right way is your path to success. And I think there's a moment where we turn that on its head for an important narrative beat, but in large part, I think that's what the goal was with the design of the thing.
Are you pretty happy with how it came out?
I'm thrilled with how it came out. Are you kidding? It's great. Oh my gosh, everything about it is like I look at it. So I came out of Bastion, right? Out of Bastion of the Penitent,
Right.
and that was sort of the first time that I had designed boss fights for Guild Wars 2, and then also implemented them, and I learned so much from that experience, that looking at how this was received, how players played it, how the goals that I set forth for players were being actualized, is just it's really incredible to watch.
That's awesome.
I think one of the great successes with Doom is the actual narrative of what's going on there is actually the mechanics you're playing through. A lot of boss fights have this thing where the boss fight is kind of divorced from what happens next, whereas Doom, the thing that happens next is all tied in with the actual actions you take during the fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something that we're trying to do more of with raids. Like having encounters that make mechanical sense is great, but what I feel like makes a really interesting encounter is when it's also telling a story or supporting a story through mechanics. And so we started pushing on that more with Doom for sure.
Yeah. Having the combat and the narrative, having all of that meld together seems like such an accomplishment. So I'm glad you're pushing on that. And
It takes
I
a
want to see
lot
more.
of work.
It's really hard.
It's a lot of iteration.
It's really hard. Yeah.
But you guys just work in a vacuum and do it all by yourselves and whatever you want, right?
I think we're back in that imaginary world
Yes.
we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. Byron, you implemented the rewards on this.
Yes.
Is there anything in particular you're extra happy about? Go.
Go. Well, I'm really so. Man, I had this crazy idea to put sitting in the game, and we got mount tech,
Nonsense.
and we got and so like from the beginning, I was like, man, it'd be really cool if Doom was just like watching you for a good part of the fight, and just sort of like evaluating whether or not he's even worthy to come down off of his throne. And then I was like, what if players could do that? What if players could sit in judgment of others on the bench, right? And I feel like
concept.
yeah. And so I worked with Cot and Brian. Cot's our animator, and Brian is one of our environment and prop artists to build out a series of special poses for this chair reward that you can get as a drop in the thing. And someone, I think it's dropped a couple times now. Mm-hmm. And the first person who got it, it was really funny actually. I went in game because I saw the post and I was like, "Oh, it's happened!" And I went in game
so happy.
and I went to like find the person to whisper them and be like, "Hey, congrats! I'm so excited for you. I'm so thrilled." And they were AFK, and I was like, "It's exactly no, it's perfect. That's exactly what people are going to do with this." Like I called it a while ago. They're just going to sit and look amazing while they do it, and go and leave their computer, so that everybody can take their screenshots, and that they don't have to like, they have to pay attention to it. It's just like it's a way of saying like, "Hey, I look at this. This is great." So and so I got a message like I don't know 30 minutes later being like, "Oh hey, thanks for making the thing," and it was funny to see how. Like the prediction was perfect.
Do we know how many of those have dropped so far?
I know of 2. I don't
Okay.
know if there are more. The container that it drops in is tradable, but I don't think anyone's put it on the trading post.
Who's gonna
Suppose
put
we
it
could
on
go
the
Right?
with
trading
Like I
post?
wouldn't. I would double click that thing in a second, right? Man.
I mean,
And it puts you in the thing is like it puts you in this cool like the Asura are like sitting on it sideways, and like the Norn female's got this really regal like judgment. Oh man, the poses are really cool.
Oh my gosh, we need a gallery of this, or somebody just go through every character you have. Make sure you have something in every race, because I need to see them all, and I don't.
Oh yeah,
see me
race and
getting
gender.
there.
I think they all have different poses.
Some of them are similar. I think the rigs that share similar animation machines or rigging share some poses. I think human male, Sylvari female and male, and Norn male share the same poses. There are some that got special ones. The Asura obviously can't do the like real far back lean, and the Char sit there and like tap their claws on tail swishes. It's so good.
I feel like the Asura could do the real far back lean. It's just their feet would stick straight out.
I don't
And
think it would have the
that'd be
same
adorable.
effect.
I wanted them to be lying backwards on it, like leaning back, looking at the. But here's the thing.
Like Asura just don't know how to sit.
I think what's really cool about it, yeah, exactly, right? They just like, what is this
What
concept?
is
We're
a
always.
chair?
But one of the things that's cool about it is we built this item alongside a bank of animations that it can be extended, right? And so like, when we do more stuff like this, we have the option to extend it to other parts of the game. I know that there was some concern about, like, you've added sitting behind the hardest possible boss in the game, behind behind a random drop. Like, we built it in mind so that we could extend it to other places, so you can look for those things.
I'm waiting for this Looney Tune cane to like just drag Byron off the side of the screen.
Oh man, if they needed the Looney Tune cane me, I had some things I could say.
I'm so glad you brought that up, and I'm so glad you went there, because I've been thinking like all week, how do I ask this without sounding completely combative and like, why Byron? So thank you for letting us know that that's a thing that can be extended.
Yeah.
Because that's awesome news. I mean, that's good news for everybody who, like me, probably will not have that reward anytime soon.
Not of that attitude.
I mean, sitting is.
You're
it
right.
is a
I'm not.
luxury.
First step's believing.
Okay. I believe that I probably won't have it this week. How's that?
There you go.
Because it's Friday and Christmas is coming, and I'm busy. All right, so we know that was one of your highlights of this reward.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't you guys tell me about some more things that you especially loved about creating this content? But please don't all fight over going first.
I mean, I still really latched on to being able to throw in sort of like hidden Guild Wars 1 references and like little Easter eggs. I don't know that players have found all of them. But there's some cool stuff hidden around there, and yeah.
Do you want to tell one, or do you want to just wait and see? Okay. It's like, I mean, you can give hints if you want, but I'm not going to make you.
No, I mean they're fun, and they're just sort of references, and Jessica worked really hard to have references between the early release content and like stuff that's in the raid, and even if you don't want to or aren't able to kill everything in the raid right now, you can still sort of hop around and find some ledges and whatnot. And
that sounds so threatening.
If
you don't want to do that, you can find a ledge,
I guess, right? But yeah, like there's stuff to go find and explore in there, and it's just fun little lore bombs.
Yeah, there's, especially if you're a longtime player, it just feels good to go in there and see what all you guys put in there. So thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah.
The more teasery content, the stuff that came in the release prior to the actual raid release was really satisfying for me to work on, just because I wanted raids to have more of a place in the actual world. I think some of the earlier raids suffered a bit from the fact that they kind of exist largely in this vacuum. They're a place you go to, and the story doesn't tie into the main world as much as it could. Whereas with the underworld, you find clues that lead to the conclusion that you're going to underworld before the actual underworld release, and also there's this kind of this call that Desmina is sending out that you actually see the ramifications of on NPCs in the world, and you see people trying to answer the call and dying, and that gives the raid a much more tangible link to the actual core Tyria experience, and I thought that was really satisfying to do. It was also super satisfying to watch everybody speculate about what does this mean? Who's the lady in red? That kind of thing. Yeah. I eat that up.
One person got it on the thread, by the way, on the Reddit thread.
Oh, did
one
they
person
really?
was like, it could be this one and like called out Desmina, and then like there was just like
Seriously?
radio silence after that post for that person. I was like, oh man.
I love it when like one person.
Click.
I love it when one person gets it right, and then like 5 people call him an idiot.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's Reddit.
You're not. I mean,
That's
you're
the
not
internet.
wrong. And one of the really fun things for me has always been when speculation threads start all over the place. Someone always will stumble on it just by law of how many people are speculating. Someone's going to accidentally hit that bullseye. And it's so much fun for me finding that person and then just waiting. And I always want to do like a little remind me, but I've never figured that would probably be too obvious.
You gotta do it on your personal account.
dead giveaway.
There was one guy who, I don't remember what the content was, but they were like, oh my gosh, if Guild Wars 2 does such and such, I will give my firstborn. And it was a month, and they had hit it on the head. So I came back after that content released and just said, hi. And they were like,
You may call me Rumpelstiltskin.
We've come to collect.
yes, we are here. All right, so before we take a moment and swap out with a couple more dev guests, I would love to hear you guys talk about some of the stuff that happened in development that maybe needed to be fixed. And please explain this note that I have about Little Doomy and the Great Escape.
Oh man, so
Little Doomy.
Little Doomy. So
This is so dumb.
Little Doomy is our internal name for the challenge mode creature, the Ender's Echo that spawns in challenge mode. He's basically or a Doomba, right? He's like a Roomba, right? He chooses a direction. He runs in that direction until he hits a wall, and then he chooses another direction. He's not particularly efficient at it, but we called him Little Doomy. And we were having a play test, and the collision on the door hadn't been set up yet or properly, but the implementation for the challenge mode was working, and so we went in to test it. We activated the challenge mode, and like he spawns in and he starts running. Everyone's like, "Oh, get out of the way! Watch out!" Like, and then we start fighting the boss. We get really into it, and someone at some point was like, "Hey, Doom's left. He's running down the steps. And he just like
go.
exited the door and just like kept on going, and just we never saw him again. And it was just sort of this moment where we're like, well, yeah, I guess that was gonna happen.
He's free now.
He's free now.
He's in a better place.
He found the portal to Tyria and stuck in that little
goes.
alcove with
And
the
now
Grin
he's out in the
statue.
world.
Yep.
No, not quite. I have to say that I'm completely throwing in my vote for calling him Doomba.
Doomba.
Because that was, you just missed the boat not leaving that there. That was so good.
Yeah, then
I
we
feel
can
like
put the parts
Doomba's
of the little demon.
cleverer.
I like it.
You could put a cat on top of him with a knife taped to the side, and then it's actually a Doomba. You've seen that GIF? With the cat
Yes.
and the, yeah, exactly.
There's many of those gifts.
Perfect.
Yeah, I was giving you that look like, wow, I'd totally forgotten about that, but good job remembering.
Perfect.
Jessica, you had an attack mechanic on Desmina that seems super infuriating, and I didn't want to know until right now if that was deliberate and you just decided it was cruel.
So it was deliberate.
That's
and
mean.
the original version of Desmina, all her attacks knock back, and a lot of the gameplay around her was trying to manage your positioning on the platform so you didn't go flying off the edge.
I'm like, just thinking about that.
Which, like, I still like that as a mechanic, but in retrospect, maybe a little infuriating. We did a lot of
Cool.
playtest, and Crystal got a little bit mad at me.
Byron's making a face like he did
Yeah,
not get
dude.
out of the way enough.
I did not, and I hate getting knocked back.
I mean,
Knockbacks are really infuriating.
There
Yes.
are some benefits to it in that it bypasses some of the mitigation that players tend to rely on a lot in our game, so it challenges you in different ways. But the simple fact that you lose control of your character often is infuriating.
I
So
do
that's
not
why
like-
we cut it.
There
Yeah.
is also like a thematic reasoning, which is necromancers don't really have a lot of knockbacks,
It's true.
and they
That's fair.
tend to be more like you fear things or you poison things or you have your minion
But
do the
Desmina
knockback.
is a necromancer warrior, dual class.
No.
The
That's why she-
callbacks are strong here.
That's why she uses a hammer.
It's a scythe hammer.
Where's the hook?
So, to a point, I mean, I hate losing control of my character. That's
Sure.
that's the thing that is super infuriating. To a point, if I get knocked down or if I get knocked back, it's because I was being bad and did not get out of the way. I was not paying attention. So, to a point, those mechanics are great because
Sure.
it's
don't
not
get
just
hit.
standing there wailing on something. But every attack,
Yeah.
I would be so angry.
Well, just don't get hit. If you fly off the edge, bad down. It's your fault.
Fine, to a point. Whoever made her calm down with this, thank you.
There's if you ever see the early versions of most fights, there's usually something in them that will make you throw your keyboard. This is why we play test, right?
Well, yeah. That's hilarious and great for leaving it in there to a point. Thank you guys very, very much. We're going to take a quick break and introduce some more dev guests. So thank you guys. I will let you get back to work.
Cool.
All right, I am here with one of our web programmers here at ArenaNet to talk to you guys about a feature we recently added to the game that you were very happy with. So, Chris, I'll let you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about what you do here at ArenaNet.
Sure, thanks. My name's Chris Watt. Some people might know me on Twitter as Black Lion Chess. I've been here at ArenaNet for 2 years. Moved over to the States from the UK a year ago, and it's been fantastic here. I work as a programmer on the web team, and so we do various things kind of around the game. So all of the game websites, there's projects inside the game, so things like the trading post and the gem store. I specifically have kind of worked on the Pathify launcher, which was a big rebuild, and recently this kind of books interface, which we just shipped with episode 1.
Yeah, the Pathfinder launcher was a really good project. That turned out beautifully, and everybody was super happy with it. But more recently, the books interface we added into game and got a hugely fun response. Everybody seemed very, very happy with it. How did you, and I know this is something that's been in the background for a while, and we've been trying to get this off the ground. How did you come to be the one that brought this to completion and got it to live?
So it was probably about a year ago. Somebody else on the web team started it off, kind of kicked it off as a side project, kind of quality of life feature they wanted to see in the game. And there's a lot of people around here and players who've wanted to see it for a long time.
Yeah.
So they kind of got it to a kind of proof of concept, and then I picked it up from them, built it out kind of what there is now. And as you say, we've been trying to get it kind of launched into the game for a while. There was kind of talk about getting it into a couple of previous releases. There was talk of getting it into Path of Fire itself.
Yeah.
And then we finally managed to get it in. It found its home in episode 1.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Were you watching player reactions when it went in there?
Yeah, well, it was funny. It ended up, we kind of got it in on the second day. It was a hotfix that actually enabled it in the end, due to kind of various complications. And so it was sort of a stealth launch, really. We kind of soft launched it. And so yeah, when we finally kind of saw things start popping up on social media, that was really exciting to see players.
Yeah, that probably was really, really gratifying. As much work has gone on behind the scenes to get this in there.
Definitely. It's definitely one of those projects that kind of has kind of died and then been brought back to life a couple of times.
But thank you for making it the Phoenix then.
Oh, sure.
All right, so you've got hopes. I mean, we're not just going to throw this down and walk away. You've got some hopes for this in the future.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. So we've had some fantastic feedback from players. One of the biggest cries is for kind of some kind of bookshelf or library system, which is something there have been kind of discussions about, but we have nothing kind of like solidly planned yet. The thinking was that we would get this out with episode 1, see what the feedback was like, and then hopefully kind of look at doing some more things to it at some point in the future. I'd definitely like to. Working on these kind of quality of life features is probably my favourite part of kind of working here. As someone who played the game for kind of 3 years before I joined ArenaNet, it's still very much my favourite thing to do.
Yeah, it's really gratifying to get that into game and know that you made this difference.
Yep, absolutely.
So, well, and like we've talked about the keychain, and we talked about the additions to material storage for a long time. It's not just like a one and done, okay, it's been a week, we've got this thing out. This is kind of an ongoing thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the plan. We wanted to get this kind of first iteration of it, first base system in, which is, you know, a fantastic kind of addition to the game, I think. And then, yeah, take it from there and see where we can make improvements and kind of add new features.
Yeah, it'll be fun to watch over time where this goes.
For sure.
So, all
Absolutely.
right. Well, thank you very much, Chris. I appreciate your time. And thank you guys also for all of the feedback on this. Thanks for helping us make Guild Wars 2 better. All right, we are back with a couple more of our developers for the latest Raid Wing. I'll let you two introduce yourselves and talk about what you worked on for this raid.
I'm Samantha Rogers. I'm a creature artist, and I worked on Doom, and that's about it.
That was kind of a big job.
That's a huge job.
She makes it sound like it wasn't a big thing. You know, I only did the end boss.
He's
for
the
this,
god
so
of the underworld.
I made as many, too. That's it.
How about you, Frank?
Thanks, Sam.
How you doing? I'm Franco Coletta, the effects lead for Guild Wars 2, and I worked on the raid from the effects standpoint, and
Awesome.
worked with the devs.
Okay, so I want to talk about redesigning Doom, because we've got like this guy that's been around for ages, and bringing him into this game seems like a big job. So how did
I
you
had
get
help.
started on that? You had help? It wasn't like all by yourself?
I had help from, like, everyone.
So where did you start? I mean, actually, you gave us some really awesome concept art that kind of helped me see where you were going with this, but
Yeah,
where did you start bringing him from Guild Wars 1 into Guild Wars 2?
Well, I think either our concept artist or our animator was the first one to get started on it.
I think it was
And-
Sveta.
Yeah, so if you want to bring up that. Sveta did like the first official concept for it, and I think at the time the story for him was different. So there were some things in it that I decided to take out. And our animator Kot also did some paintings for him of his idea. He jumps in a lot first thing to throw in his ideas for the raid bosses, I've noticed.
I keep hearing his name. It seems like he was super helpful.
Yeah, he's really into raids, I'd say.
Yeah, Kot's one of our animators, and he's done animations for, I think, all of the raids since 3, maybe
Nice.
2. I think he worked on 2 actually, which is
Okay, well, if you can't remember, we're all in trouble.
Salvation Pass. Jeez.
Look, I have stuff to do.
Yeah, no, I think he actually did the White Mantle boss, which is Matthias. Yeah,
nice.
I still call everything by its internal names. Fortunately, Doom is Doom internally.
Depending on, unless you want to have a fight about how to pronounce it. But
yeah.
generally, it's that guy.
Oh, should I explain that, the weird pronunciation thing?
You can if you like.
So internally, when we don't have voice acting done, we use Robo Voice.
Oh, Oh, that was a robo voice
It
thing?
was Robo Voice, and
Oh
so
my
every
gosh.
time Doom's name was said, it would go dehuman, and so we just called it dehuman.
I'm
I
getting
mean, that's
people
how
to-
I call him the whole way through.
Yeah.
Dehuman.
Sounding it out.
Yeah, RoboVoice. We've talked about RoboVoice on the show before, and I've gotten such a kick out of how it has trouble pronouncing some things. And I was saying on a previous show, the highlight of my career, as far as that goes, was hearing RoboVoice try to say, "Pfft," which was amazing. And I
Isn't it
wish-
just like a puff?
it was just like a little buzzing noise. It was fantastic.
I remember it used to say Balthazar.
Balthazar, yeah.
Balthazar.
It was-
Pacifier.
I'm so sad that I never got to hear RoboVoice say Doom.
It was enchanting. Yeah.
All right, so Franco, do you want to talk a little bit about your work on this Raid Wing?
Well, it was definitely a collaborative effort from everyone just coming together and trying to figure out what works best. Like the designers, when they're working on an instance, they're trying to get the player through the instance and path them through. From the effects standpoint, we want to make sure that we're helping communicate some of the skills of the design, and it actually communicates what they're trying to achieve. So messaging is a big part of it. So also coming up with a color palette that works well with the environment, and also you could tell that it's coming from that particular boss.
Yeah.
So, because there's so many skills being thrown down and so many different other colors.
I feel like greens and blues will feature very, very heavily in what you're working with when you're setting this up.
Yeah. What we did is early on, we ended up just getting what the map looked like, the base, and just seeing what local color is in the environment, and then from there we could get our color palette ranges, and from the effects standpoint, know what works well, doesn't get too lost, especially when it's important with communication
Yeah.
and messaging.
So, where did you start with communicating? As far as like the final encounter, since Samantha worked on Doom and Byron scripted that fight, where did you start on how do we want to communicate everything? How many different teams are you working with here?
Well, it's a lot of the design, with Byron. I work closely with Byron, Jason. And also, too, is, this is someone that's very powerful, so you also want to convey his power through his skills that he's putting down.
So not like little wimpy effects.
No little cloud puffs and none of that. But also, too, is like, he's also kind of, the design was that he's contained within this armor, right? So there's an essence that is a lot more powerful, but he's just kind of contained and holding it back.
So it's still reined in a little bit.
Yeah, still reined in. Yeah, but so that was a.
Can you give an example of like one of his big skills that you had to telegraph?
Well, one of the things that we prototyped really early was the growing on decal. That was the one that basically the decal grew out, and then there was a larger. I think it was which one was that? That was
The one with the wind. That pulls you in?
yeah, that pulls you in. There's that. Then also the harvest too. That was another one. Where basically a portal opens up and Doom's hand and arm comes pulling you.
Oh,
Pulling
that
you in,
one.
and and that was actually something that was pulled in from Guild Wars 1, where, when someone's banished, Doom just comes out.
So when someone was
But we didn't want to go literal.
Yeah, when someone's banned in Guild Wars 1, Doom comes out and, scythes them down or whatever, and that's kind of what inspired the hand grabby effect.
Yeah.
Okay, so banned, which I had also forgotten about, but I was thinking when you said banished, there was the was that the Shiro fight where somebody was banished and it was like always me in every group, which is why I was like, oh, that. But yeah, the Doom banning in Guild Wars 1 was, and it was such a hit. Like everybody, okay, probably not everybody enjoyed it, but the spectators quite enjoyed it.
wonder
So
if
it was a neat
anybody,
callback.
Got banned on purpose, just like I did it, and put it on YouTube. Like, well, look at me go.
You did that, huh?
No.
Oh,
I
okay.
love my Guild Wars account.
That just feels like a first-person story.
I mean, it's probably true though.
Well, what were some of the best parts of working on this for you guys?
I mean, for me, like it was getting everything organized and sort of like telling the story of Doom and like working with Sam and Kot and Byron to tell the story of Doom and what's going on in that encounter, but then also trying to give our little section of the underworld some life.
Yeah, which is ironic.
I mean, yes.
Sorry.
You know, it's not the entire underworld. It's only a section. It's just the ice waste. And if you're familiar with Guild Wars 1, there's some like 7 areas. And we just, that's a huge map. And we didn't have really the story to tell. We wanted to tell Doom's story, which is only in the ice waste. And so that's why you're there. But it was really interesting for us to take, you know, what was the map like in Guild Wars 1, and how can we retool it? And there's some interesting lore that we ended up running with, which is, you know, the underworld is part of the mist, and the mist is sort of ever changing, and so it allowed us to insinuate that the underworld is sort of fluctuating and morphing and altering depending on like what the needs are. So that allowed us a lot of bandwidth, I guess you could say, to do whatever we wanted with the ice waste. And so we chose to make it a lot more like ravines and just deep drops and really high cliffs and precarious sort of nature of just like spiky ice environment. But yeah, like just coming up with all that stuff and finding ways to make it seem purposeful, because it's not natural, right?
Yeah.
Was kind of fun and interesting, and then getting the flow and also, you know, experimenting with like the statue events and how that works inside of a raid, and kind of breaking from our traditional, or like deviating, I guess, from our traditional very linear path of like, you know, boss event. I guess it sort of still is that, but at least in this setup you can choose 3 different mini events and do them in any order and any configuration. Yeah, I don't know.
Having a little more choice about how you do that is
Yeah, and they're all very different, and so you have to I think there's just a little bit of something in there for everyone, which was really fun to explore.
Yeah. Okay, so Sam, I feel like you had so much fun with the concept art of Doom. Because if we can take another peek at that, when you sent me that, there were people crowded around my computer, and we were all looking at that.
I do that to all my concepting.
Do you really?
It just
Let's
makes it so
talk
much
later.
more fun. Oh, there it is.
But it and I loved the souls. It's like, it's so curved in here. This is hard.
Yeah, I had an idea for one of his attacks being like a soul burst that came from his chest, and it would just like beam down at the players and destroy them, and his chest could like open up like a bunch of like fingers or ribs just opening up like that. And,
That's horrifying and fantastic all at once.
and he would say those lines that I put there in the concept, but we didn't get any VO for that. So.
But we can see them here.
Yeah,
and we get
What
they
does
live
it say?
on.
I can't read it.
Yeah, and also I kind of like concepted how the players would react to that.
See, there's a little player at the bottom. It's perfect. I really do like that. So that is... Was this like your template for effects on it? Okay, big green thing with the guy lying down.
No. No. It actually it was pretty fun. If we could do it, if we wanted to do it, we could do it. But there's obviously, based on the mechanics, based on the attacks, you know, we didn't go that route.
I think he ended up doing the opposite, where he like
he
actually floats up and
he floats up.
gets
Yeah,
sucked
sucked
into him
in. So
instead.
yeah.
He still could have said those lines though.
Yeah. I was hoping for, if it wasn't for your pesty kids, I would have got away. Kind of then takes his mask off.
And he rips off the mask and just farmer jokes the whole time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you guys very, very much for your time, and especially for the concept art, because that was kind of a thing of beauty. All right. And thank you guys for spending some time with us this afternoon. I will let you guys get back to work, as always. And thank you guys. We'll see you on the next Guild Chat.